Hi everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is A.A.E. Murphy, author of Viral, A True Story of Epidemic Flu, Fear, and Faith. Wanted to talk today about something that has to do with fibromyalgia in a, I guess it's a direct way, but indirectly because it is the basis and foundation of everything in life, and it sounds cliche, but I want to talk about love. I had this inspiration this morning that I wanted to share with you. And I think it was maybe coming from spirit. I don't know. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. I wasn't intending to focus on love and come up with some kind of definition or whatever this morning, but it just came to me. So that's how I felt I needed to share it, because it just seemed to come out of nowhere. And I called this "Love Me Where I Am and Not Where You Want Me to Be," because I think it's the basis of so much in life. If you are a giver, and most fibromyalgians are givers, right? That's how I started off with fibromyalgia. Overgiving, overdoing. I don't want to say overloving, because there's no such thing, but I worked myself in my life to a place where I was constantly giving, volunteering thousands of hours for organizations, nonprofit organizations, making other people's dreams come true, not my own. Nobody asked me to do it. I just felt that I needed to. I needed to save things. Save the whales, save the seals, save the dolphins, save the porpoises, save the birds that fall out of the tree, save the worms in the puddles in the driveway, save the children, save the environment, save the ocean, save the air, save the greyhounds, protect the dogs, protect the kittens, protect, the puppies. So it was always focused on saving, protecting everything else. Things that were, of course, more helpless and needy than I, but by the same token, when we give from an empty cup, when we pour from an empty pitcher and we have nothing to fill ourselves up again, we become exactly that. We become unable to provide anymore. And I think it's our body's way of saying, enough is enough. Save yourself, protect yourself, love yourself, nurture yourself. So how that has to do with love is I've been on this kick lately about self-love. And we get to a place when we have fibromyalgia where we just really can't do anything for anybody else, because we can barely do anything for ourselves, right? So we have to come to an understanding and a relationship with ourselves, and have this contract with ourselves that we're going to honor ourselves first and love ourselves first. And a lot of people out there on social media, in the self-help groups, in the Facebook pages, talk about, I miss my life, I miss my old life, I wish I could do things that I can't do anymore. And I've talked about this in many videos about trying to be positive and maintain a positive attitude. But where does that come from? How do you have a positive attitude? How do you make this shift? So I think the key is just to look at ourselves the way God or Christ or Spirit or the universal source looks at us. Call it what you will. Look at ourselves that way and love ourselves that way. Love ourselves the way we love other things and other people and other creatures. So that's where it starts from. So that's why I call this "Love Me Where I Am," because I'm really speaking to myself. And I hope that this reaches you in some way. I hope you're having a good day, and I hope this makes it even better. So I'm a teacher, and I've just lately come to compare the pedagogy and the strategies and the methodology that we use in education to apply to people with fibromyalgia, which I have. I was diagnosed in 2015 after a catastrophe. And I think it applies to life in general. Just as in education, even though a child may be in 7th grade, he or she may not be reading on a 7th grade level. So we're going to adjust our instruction to meet the child's needs, right? And give them what they need, not just what the standards tell us they should be receiving. So yes, teachers are required to teach on a 7th grade level to students with the ability to read on a 7th grade level, but we're also required ethically and morally and legally to provide an education that is appropriate to that child. In special education, we call it free and appropriate education. Okay, what's appropriate? Students from kindergarten through 12th grade are on a path in education, but everyone is at different points on that path, right? We cannot expect a child in the 1st grade to read Shakespeare. No sooner will we expect a 17-year-old in high school to sit on the floor and play with blocks, unless that's what they need. Then that's appropriate for them, right? So there's the standard, and then there's the exception to those standards. There's a rule, and there's an exception to that rule. The same can be said about love. And this is what I'm thinking this morning. We're all capable of love. We're all on a loving path in this human journey. Some of us may have known divine love and are capable of returning and exchanging divine love and demonstrating divine love in whatever you perceive that to be. And some may not have been loved or have been loved poorly or neglected in the name of love, or abused in the name of love, right? So we're all on this path, and yet our perception of what love is differs by what we've been presented with, what we've been exposed to. And that's not your fault. It's not your fault if you weren't loved properly. It's not your fault. But it is kind of our obligation now to make the adjustment, to understand what we were lacking, and to seek that and find that out and to understand it, right? Seek first to understand. That's biblical. We can't expect someone who doesn't understand the degree or depth of our love to return it in the same way that we give, right? So I tend to be, I think, extremely profound and deep. When I was a child, I think I was kind of dark and stormy. I was kind of like Eeyore, I think. I look back on pictures of myself as a child, and I feel like I didn't smile very much. I mean, I kind of tried to muster up, lifting the lips at the corners for a picture, but I really didn't seem happy at all. I must have been a very not fun person to be around, right? I was deep and dark. I was dark. And I've come into finding joy now, and that's why I'm thankful for the catastrophe, the event that caused my fibromyalgia, because I was forced to find the other extreme, right? I've been living in the darkness. I needed to find the light and find the joy. So I give to an extreme degree, and I know this is in my family. My sister is the same way. I can't even begin to tell you. She is constantly giving, constantly. She's thinking about others, thinking about others, thinking about others. And she does take care of herself, and she does love herself and honor herself too. But with me, I think I was always just trying to save all these creatures and save the world and world peace and all that. I just forgot about myself. I think I grew up thinking that my needs came last, and so I just figured if we serve and we take care of others, God or whoever is going to take care of us. And so I was raised a Christian, and I had, I think, a warped perception of what God's love was. I didn't really understand it. I thought the more you give of yourself, the more you receive. Okay, and I think that's a flawed premise. I think there's a prologue to that, and that is that we have to be filled up first. We can't give if we're empty. So Anyway, I gave to a great degree, and I give deeply, and I had several miserable failed relationships. And I'm trying to process and work it through, and I see now that my mistake may have been that I gave too much and I expected too much in return. And that's also flawed. There's a suggestion that we speak love languages, different love languages. I'm not sure how many. I think it's 5, and I'm not sure what they are. So I can maybe get to it in another video. But I think it means successful communication occurs when we know our own language and when we know our partner's language, or our loved one's language, and we reach them in a way they understand. Just like we can be reached by speaking our language, right? It makes sense. We wouldn't expect to go to a foreign country and speak to them in our native language and expect they would understand us. Why would it be any different with love or relationships? My failures in love have been due to, I think, an expectation that my partner returns to me what I give. And I've come to understand there's so many different faces of love. We're setting ourselves up for failure if we expect another to return love in the same way that we give it. No sooner would we hide the apples for the deer in the treetops. I've been putting apples out for the deer here, and I put them on you can't see it, but I have a milk can out here under the bird feeder, and I put apples out there, and I notice that they're gone in the morning. So I don't know if it's the deer, but I do have deer back here, and the ground has been snow covered, and so somebody has taken those apples, somebody that can reach them, right? I wouldn't put them on the tippy top of the tree and expect the deer to reach them. That would just be horrible, right? And tantalizing. And yet, I'd put apples on a treetop if there were giraffe in my backyard, but I wouldn't give them for deer and expect that the deer would eat them. And then the apples in the treetop don't get taken because I don't have giraffes, and then I get upset and I say, well, why aren't you taking my apples, creatures? I don't know, that's kind of a strange analogy, but I hope it works for you. I have to give my gift at a place and in portion that the recipient is able and willing to receive. When I give without expectation, when I give without ceremony, and without pomp, and without contract, and without attachment, the gift can be accepted with grace and gratitude rather than obligation or even subjugation. I think many of us have received gifts, if you're like me, have received gifts that have strings attached. Do you know what I'm talking about? People love, and so they want to show their love, and their love language is maybe to give gifts. And so even in the gift giving, someone is expecting something in return, right? You wrap a present up in pretty paper and a nice bow, and even just the joy of seeing somebody look at that wrapping and that paper and that bow, and the expectation of what's inside, that gives to us, right? We give a gift all wrapped up pretty and nice and everything because it does serve us to some extent. And I don't mean to offend when I say this. I just say this is human nature. When we give, we do have an expectation that it's going to bring joy to somebody else. It's going to make them happy, right? But I think what I'm coming to understand is no matter what it is and no matter how you give it, you can't expect anything in return for it. You're setting yourself up for failure if you expect and then you don't receive in return, yeah? So just give it and then never hope to see a thing about it. I think that's why biblically there are scriptures, and I'm sorry, I'm not a scriptorian, so many of you who are out there could probably quote verse, but there's an expectation that you don't go in church and go to the front pew and throw yourself on the floor and wail and moan and ask God for forgiveness and say how sad you are and, woe is me. Or in return, you don't go to the front pew and, sing on the top of your lungs so that everybody can hear you singing. I don't know. I might offend. That might be offensive. I'm sorry. That might be offensive, but not to people who sing loud in church or in the choir and all that. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. And that's not, I don't think what the scriptures are talking about. I think the scriptures are referring to people who give and say, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm giving, look at me, I'm doing, look at what I have, look at what I can offer. So I know there's many congregations that provide help and assistance, and they're nameless, and they don't want anything in return. I was the recipient of so much love and service and care when I was sick during the ordeal in 2014 that led to my diagnosis of fibromyalgia a year later. I was constantly at the front door with my hand open. I'd open up the door, so sick, right? And I'd say, thank you. And members of my church would come and they would give me soup and food. And every other day they were there. What do you need? What can we do for you? I mean, the people in the church were wonderful. They came and they tore out our bathroom and they rehabbed our bathroom. When Joe came home from rehab, his mobility was so limited that he could barely lift his legs. And he couldn't get into the bathtub because I had this really ancient bathtub and he had to step into it, right? So they came and they rehabbed my bathroom and they tore out this cast iron tub and they redid the walls and they put handicap handles on everything, and they changed the toilet and they changed the vanity and they changed the flooring so that he could take his walker, Joe could take his walker into the bathroom. All for free, all for nothing. They didn't want anything. And I remember saying, I'm thank you. And then I said to myself, I am so sick of saying thank you. I am sick of it. I am sick of being poor me. Poor me. I didn't feel like poor me, but I felt like everybody else saw me as poor me. And then when people would offer things and they would do things for me, I'd say, I can't give anything back to you. And so I really can't accept anything from you anymore because I can't give back. And it's almost humiliating to accept help constantly, all the time. For months and months and months, guys, this went on. Months and months and months. I had to do a GoFundMe fundraiser. I raised $35,000, and that was wonderful because it kept us in our home. Neither one of us could work. It was wonderful. But there was a time when I had to shut that page down. I couldn't put it out there anymore. And I'm off on a little bit of a tangent, so just bear with me because I think this all comes back around again to loving ourselves and giving to ourselves and being humble in that self-love, not arrogant and not prideful and not, I'm going to put myself first and only. I'm going to put myself first until I can be strong and healthy enough to give without expectation. I'm going to love myself where I need to be loved right now. So I hope when you're listening to this that if you have fibromyalgia or a chronic disease, that you spend some time when you have clarity. If you can find it, I wish you clarity. I wish you days without incredible pain. That you understand we have to love ourselves first until we can get better. Okay? There's a reason why there's 10 plus million people in the United States with fibromyalgia. There's a reason why 3 to 4 million people are diagnosed every year with fibromyalgia, and why 3 to 6% of the global population has fibromyalgia. There is something happening. There's something going on. I don't know what your circumstances are that led to your diagnosis, and I don't know what your symptoms are, but I do know that we are all on the same path, and we're all in the same boat right now, and I'm just trying to share with you what has been working for me. It has to come down to self-love. We just really have to just rein everything in, and no apologies, right? We're sick. No apologies. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about their opinions. Don't worry about their judgment of us. I just saw something a couple of days ago that Jeff Sessions said that people with chronic pain should just take an aspirin and get over it. And it just made me laugh. And I just said, I didn't even get angry. I just said, oh my gosh, I really hope and pray that you never understand what having fibromyalgia is like. I hope you never understand it. It's ignorance, but I don't mean that in a connotative way. We don't want anybody to know what this is like, right? So we can't really expect that people are going to understand unless they've walked our path, unless they've lived our life, right? Unless they've experienced it. So that's just a lot of noise coming out of someone who doesn't understand, and we just have to just let that go. We just don't have the energy or the time, or it's just bad for the spirit to just take offense. Just don't take offense. So don't worry about what other people think. Just love yourself and respect yourself and honor yourself. Love yourself where you need to be loved. Just like when we teach kids, we bounce kids on our knee and we read them books that they understand. Just speak the language that you understand. What's your language? What makes you happy? What brings you joy? I know that used to be a great pickup line, right? I was shocked. Somebody was trying to pick me up and he said, so what brings you joy? And nobody had ever asked me that question before. I was stunned. Didn't work for him. I didn't know what to say, so I probably came off kind of like a dunce anyway. Like, she doesn't even know what makes her happy. I don't want to date her. Oh my gosh. Good times. Okay, but I mean that sincerely. What brings you joy? Find out what your language is. Find out what makes you, really tick and buzz. Find out what makes you happy. And don't say helping somebody else. Don't say that. Or don't say, spending all my money on shopping. Don't say that. Really get down to it. What makes you happy? What brings you peace? What makes you healthy? What makes you feel vibrant? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning and say, yes, I am going to tackle this today? And for us with fibromyalgia, it might just be, today I'm going to take a shower, right? Or today I'm going to be up and I'm going to do something purposeful and productive, and I'm going to say no to everything else. And if that's your love language for yourself, so be it. Honor yourself. You are precious. You're here for a reason. We're all being watched. And I don't mean that in, a paranoid way. I just mean people are watching how we are suffering and how we're handling it and how we're coping with it. And yes, there's judgments being made, and that's okay. But the larger piece of that is that by our fruits, we're going to be known, right? To refer to another biblical verse. We're going to be known by our fruits. What are we doing? How are we handling it? I hope this brought you some inspiration today. I love you all. I'll try to post something soon. In the meantime, have a great day. Find peace today and joy wherever you are. Today is all we have. Bye for now.